look slim in here today. Is it a holiday?
Questions? Right up here on the front right, Ryan.
Willie, you've played some guys that are potential NFL quarterbacks and obviously a dual threat quarterback at Arizona State. How different is this challenge for your defense going against, Love and their offensive line?
It's a lot different. It's a different style of offense than what we've seen this year. You see these guys getting two backs and multiple tight ends, and we haven't seen that this year. So that part will be different. They're committed to running the football and do a good job with their play action and have some very talented tight ends to where they can play with three tight ends. The best back that we understands what their guys are doing, and again, he don't need a big hole. This kid can find the smallest hole and get through it, and that's a challenge for a lot of defenses.
Back left, Scott.
Looking back real quick after you ran back the film on the Washington State game, aside from the obvious being a loss, what frustrated you most watching that film back?
Not being able to run the football. That was important. That's something we pride ourselves on, and we weren't able to run the football, and that made a big difference in the football game for us. And so if there was anything I was frustrated by, it was that.
All right, Jerry.
In the same vein, how would you rate the inability to run the football as much as you wanted to? Was it based on Washington State's defensive front being a lot better than Cal's, which you were able to run effectively on? Or was it lack of execution effort on the offensive line? How much of each would you say?
I would say it was both. That was a really good defense, a very active defensive line. And they moved a lot. They moved before the snap, and then they moved after the snap. And I think that caused our guys some issues up front where we didn't execute like we should have. And it's kind of paralyzed our old line to where we were waiting to see what they do rather than being in attack mode and going after them. And had a great scheme. They played really hard, and they executed, and we didn't.
Left, Rob.
Troy mentioned after the game he didn't think he tackled very well. When you watched film, what did you think of the tackling by your defense last week?
We could be better. We always could be better. I mean, you look at the first touchdown they scored, it was just a check down to the back where we had guys covered down the field, and then it was a couple missed tackling. The guy go 40-some yards. So those things, I think our players and coaches, everyone know we got to be better at that. We can't allow those things to happen where you have a guy tackle for 4 or 5 yard gain and you miss him and he go 40. So I agree with Troy that we can be better at that as well.
A couple times you mentioned after the game that Braxton will get better after playing his first game. Mm-hmm. Typically, when a quarterback makes his first start to the second start, what's the biggest jumps he makes in improvement?
Well, I think the big thing is understanding the speed of the game. You think about Braxton. Here's a kid that haven't been getting a lot of reps throughout the year. He was third for the most part, so he didn't get a lot of reps. And last week been his first week to get a lot of reps. He learned a lot. He got better throughout the week. Had a good week of practice, but it's a little different when you get in the game and you got thousands of people yelling and screaming and different. It's just different, And the more experience you have, the better you get with it. But I just think guys around him have to play better in order for Braxton to play up to his potential. He's going to need guys around him to step up and give us more.
Willie, after both losses this season, we've heard players on both sides of the ball taking the loss, putting the loss on them. How important is that type of accountability in terms of the culture you're trying to create around here? Because that's not something we heard a whole lot of last year.
I think it's important. We win together or we lose together. And when you watch the film, you see where everybody played a part in it, whether we win or lose. Everybody played a part. And I say everybody, I mean coaches and all, and we just can't have any finger pointing. That's not going to get us to where we want to go. But we got to all be accountable for what we do. And I know our defensive guys said it a lot after the game, how it was on them. But I think when guys do that, they expect more out of themselves, And I think our team know we can play better than what we did on Saturday. And I think these guys care enough about each other that they stick with each other and know to come back out and work really hard to try to rectify the mistakes that we made.
Willie, what's your relationship like with David Shaw? Were you guys together at Stanford, and have you kept in touch through the years?
David, great guy. I was there with Coach Harbaugh and David when we first got there for 3 years at Stanford, the first 3 years there, and learned a lot of football from David Shaw while I was there, and we kept in touch ever since. And he's been a good friend and someone I call on, and especially when getting this job and talking more about the Pac-12. He's one of the guys I can call on and get some help from.
Just to follow up to that, did you have a sense working there that he might be a good head coach someday? And has he pretty much followed the blueprint that you guys had when Harbaugh was there? Or has he done different things?
He followed the blueprint, but he put his own spin on it, and it's worked for him. Did I think he can be a head coach? Of course. David's very, very intelligent. He really understands the game. He has tremendous experience on the pro level and on the college level as well. But he understands defenses. He understands offensive line play. He understands the game, and being around him, you can sense then that he was on his way, and he's done a great job ever since.
Where do things stand with your quarterbacks now? Is it Braxton and Taylor trying to catch him, or if Taylor's back, do you open it up between the two of them?
That's a great question. Taylor was back yesterday, and Braxton was out, and they both were getting reps, and we'll let it go through the week and see how the week goes, and make sure the guy that give us the best chance to win be in there to play. But we'll see.
Coach in the back, Stanford's got a couple of guys out because of that targeting rule. You've dealt with that this year. Kind of a two-part question. Is it more of a challenge for coaches now trying to coach kids to be not that aggressive and tackle the right way? And the other part of that is it affecting the effectiveness of tackling? Are guys missing tackles or not wrapping it because they're so conscious of that head?
I think that's both of those questions are tough to answer. It's tough. I don't think you can speak about it a lot, tackling low and doing all these things the correct way. We've been doing that for years, but when you're in the game, it's tough. It's tough. I don't know anyone out there can teach exactly how they want you to tackle them. I mean, it's tough. It's a boom boom thing out there. It's full speed, and if anybody can stop in the middle of that and get a little lower or do some of those things, they're pretty talented. I think it's something you stress, and you got to continue to stress, and to make sure guys understand that one, you just can't go helmet to helmet, and you can't have any kind of forcible contact to the head for sure. So you got to continue to stress those things, and you can do the halt tackle and all that, but I think even in the halt tackle, you got to be in a certain situation or a certain angle coming in to tackle someone in order to do that. And you don't always have those angles, so it's tough. We're trying to make the game safe, and we're still trying to be physical and still trying to go fast, and that's tough. But we just, like anything else, you just keep working on it and hope we all continue to get better and we make the right calls.
Stanford's typically had a really good defense. What have you seen from them, and I guess maybe who stands out of what makes they do things so well?
They're well coached. They're rarely out of position. Those guys are always in position to make plays. I know the Reed kid in the secondary is very, very good. He's a good football player, and I think we all know it runs in the family. And he shows it on the football field. He's really good. The nose tackle's a good football player. They have some long corners. Good football team, just well coached, and it's going to take our A game.
Another game with
10 plus penalties. I know you mentioned before that it wasn't too big of an issue because there's not one guy that's habitually getting all the penalties. But as you continue to get double-digit penalties and lead the nation in penalties, is it a concern?
I think when you have double-digit penalties, it's always a concern, and you always work on it, But we can't continue to get false starts. Those are things that we can control, and we can't continue to get those. I think some of those calls are judgmental, and that's just the way it goes, and some of them are the right calls, So those are things we deal with. We're working on them. We're working to get better. The ones that really gets at you, the ones that we can control, and that's on us to make sure we work at that every single day to try to get better at. But I think you were at that game too, and you kind of got the answer to that one too.
Willie, with Justin being out, what have you noticed him sort of do from a leadership standpoint to sort of help guys like Braxton and Taylor, with their development, him having a little bit more experience than them?
Justin's been around. He's been there to talk to Braxton, and if Braxton have any question, he can ask. He was good for me on Saturday, just throwing out some suggestions. What do you think about this, Coach? And what do you think about that? And that's great to see. I know for me, just hearing him say that, and for a guy to be injured and still locked into the game and what's going on was very impressive.
Front right here, Gary.
A lot of coaches say how you practice is how you play. How was the practices leading up to the Washington State game, and how have the players responded yesterday? Is it similar to after the Arizona State loss?
Practice was great. I thought we had a great week of practice. I was really excited about going to the game because of how we practice. And that's one thing I can say about our football team is that our guys have learned how to practice. Even after a loss, they come back the next day and have their mind right and ready to get to work to make the correction. So yesterday's practice was good. Last week practice was good. We just didn't execute like we should have. And when you down so many players, you got to play your A game. You can't have the mistakes that we had in that football game and expect to beat a ranked football team coming in here. We got to play our A game. We can't make mistakes. We can't have the penalties. We can't have the turnovers. We got to play our A game if we expect to beat teams like that when we're down like we are. Oh, he got one more. There we go.
Willie, I know you probably just met Gary Anderson this year and never got to coach against him, but just your thoughts on Oregon State parting company with their coach at this point in the season?
To be honest with you, I really don't have a thought. I've been locked into Stanford, and I just found out about that coming in here, and I got a chance to meet Coach Anderson and get to know him a little more during our head coaches meeting. Met him before when I was at South Florida. We played Wisconsin, so good football coach. Again, I don't know what's going on there, but good football coach, and wish him and his family nothing but the best.